The Biltmore Conference was held in Biltmore Hotel in New York City from May 1st to May 6th in 1942. American Zionists assembled this to devote democratic freedom and justice in the Middle East, going against communist Russia. Baghdad Pact, or Bandung Conference, was formed in 1955 by Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Turkey, and the UK. It was dissolved in 1979. U.S. pressure and promises of military and economic aid were key in the negotiations leading to the agreement. Although the U.S. could not initially participate, John Foster Dulles, who was involved in the negotiations, ascribed this to the pro-Israel lobby and the difficulty of obtaining congressional approval. Others said that the reason for purely technical reasons of budgeting procedures. In 1958, the United States joined the Military Committee of the alliance. It is generally viewed as one of the least successful of the Cold War alliances. This organization's headquarters were located in Baghdad in 1955 through 1958 and in Turkey in 1958 through 1979. Cyprus was also an important location for CENTO due to its positioning within the Middle East and the British sovereign base areas situated on the island. Aswan Dam. In 1955, the United States, with Great Britain, was providing almost $70 million in aid to help Egypt fund the construction of the Aswan Dam on the Nile River. U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower thought that the American help might revoke Nasser from his partnership with Russia or Soviet Union and to hopefully prevent the growth of communist power in the Middle East. America does not fund the dam. Suez Crisis. The Suez Crisis was provoked by American and British decision not to finance Egypt's construction of the Aswan Dam on the Nile River. Egypt decided to grow ties with the Soviets, and they blocked Israel from getting their resources. Great Britain refuses to leave the canal unless Nasser joins the Baghdad Pact. Syria and Jordan refused to join the pact, which leads to the Suez Crisis. Great Britain and France joined forces with Israel, who hates Egypt due to previous attacks on their people, and Israel attacks Egypt. 1967 War. The Six-Day War that started in 1967 may have created a new Middle East, but the broader Arab-Israeli conflict to which the war belonged was anything but new. It had begun decades earlier, driven by ongoing refusal by Israel's neighbors to accept Jewish sovereignty in the Middle East. The general animosities that led to the Six-Day War began even before 1948. Arab oppositions to the Balfour Declaration and Jewish nationalism and British Mandate Palestine had fomented conflict as early as the 1920s. When Palestinian Arabs, rioters, often instigated by Palestinian religious leaders, Hajj Amin al-Husseini, attacked Jewish communities in Tel Haifa, Jerusalem, and elsewhere. Particularly bloody were the attacks on August 1929 when rioters massacred over 100 Jews across British-controlled Palestine, mainly in the ancient city of Hebron. These deadly riots continued sporadically throughout the 1930s, leading Jewish armed groups to engage in defensive and eventually preemptive and retaliatory battles with Arab fighters and villagers. Another of the central factors that pushed the region to war, the status of international waterways leading to Israel, also had its roots in the decades before 1967. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, Egypt blockaded the Suez Canal and the Straits of Tiran to shipping destined for Israel. But this all changed in May 1967 when war seemed almost certain. The deterioration was rooted in several factors, not the least of which was geopolitics of the Cold War. As American relations with Egypt soared, the Soviet Union stepped up its influence in the Arab world, working to build pro-Soviet Arab unity by focusing Arab attention on their common enemy, Israel. The prospect of fighting against America had a deterrent effect on Egyptian President Kemal Nasser, just as fear of the Soviet Union weighed on Israeli Prime Minister Levi Eshkol. 1973 War. 1973 War. On October 6, 1973, hoping to win back territory lost to Israel during the Third Arab-Israeli War in 1967, Egyptian and Syrian forces launched a coordinated attack against Israel on Yom Kippur. the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. Taking the Israeli Defense Forces by surprise, Egyptian troops swept deep into the Sinai Peninsula while Syria struggled to throw occupying Israeli troops out of the Golan Heights. Israel counterattacked and recaptured the Golden Heights. A ceasefire went into effect on October 25, 1973. Last but not least, Camp David Accords. Hostilities between Israel and its Arab enemies disrupted world oil supplies, forced Washington and Moscow to contemplate military intervention, and briefly sparked fears of nuclear Armageddon. Once the shooting stopped in late 1973, American policymakers undertook shuttle diplomacy between Middle Eastern capitals, prompting the Arab members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries to lift their oil embargo on the United States, reducing the Kremlin's influence among Arab nationalists and inducing Israel to be more flexible on territorial issues, all of which paved the way for the Camp David Summit in September 1978. Diplomatic progress on the Arab-Israeli front, however, was undermined by the Islamic upheavals that rocked Iran and its Muslim neighbors during the late 1970s.